This happened a few months ago. I was 35 years old and needed a break after a tough freelance project. I thought some time in a rustic cabin in the woods would help me recharge. I had some camping experience. I usually enjoyed being in nature. I arrived at the cabin late in the afternoon. It was surrounded by tall pine trees. The air felt cool and fresh. I set my things down inside and figured I'd have a quiet evening. I lit a fire in the fireplace. The flames flickered and crackled. It felt nice and cozy. Then it all went wrong. As night fell, I started hearing tapping sounds. They were rhythmic. At first I thought it was branches hitting the window. I brushed it off. Still, it felt deliberate. I glanced out into the darkness but didn't see anything. Was it just my imagination? I tried to convince myself, but unease settled in. The next day was fine. I hiked a bit. The forest felt serene, but something nagged at me. I couldn't shake the weird feeling from the night before. When night came again, the tapping returned. It was louder this time, almost demanding. My heart raced. I tried to pinpoint the sound. My skin felt prickly. I thought about going outside to look but didn't dare. I finally fell asleep, but was jolted awake again by the tapping. When I opened my eyes, I noticed strange markings on the walls. I could swear they hadn't been there before. They looked like scratches, jagged and deep. I ran my fingers over the lines. They felt like a warning, like something I couldn't quite understand. As the weekend went on, the shadows outside grew darker. I thought I saw things moving between the trees. My heart skipped a beat every time. Maybe it was the lack of sleep playing tricks on me. Once, I thought I heard whispers coming from the woods. The hairs on my neck stood up. I told myself it was just the wind, but deep down it felt wrong. On my last night, I gripped the blanket, waiting for it to end. The tapping was relentless, as if whatever was out there wanted in. I sat in a corner, holding my breath. Then I saw a shadow dart past the window. I didn't breathe. Cold spread through me. In the morning, I packed my things in a hurry. I wanted to leave. As I drove away, the cabin slipped behind the trees. I felt relief wash over me. But a part of me wondered, what happened there? What were those strange marks? And what else was hidden in those woods? Just as I thought I was alone now, I heard it again. A soft tapping from the back of the car. I glanced back. Nothing was there. What I experienced still haunts me. I don't think I'll go back to the woods again. I still don't have any answers. As I drove away from the cabin, I tried to shake off the lingering dread. The trees blurred past, their silhouettes leaning and swaying in the rearview mirror. I focused on the road ahead. I needed to get home, to escape the unease that clung to me like a shadow. A few miles down the road, I decided to stop at a small diner for coffee. The place was a little run down, but it felt warm and inviting. I sat down at the counter, hoping the familiar buzz of conversation would help settle my nerves. I ordered a cup of black coffee and a slice of pie. As I waited, I couldn't help but steal glances at the other patrons. They all seemed relaxed, laughing and chatting, but I felt out of place. My mind was still trapped in the cabin, replaying the tapping, the shadows, and the scratches. Then the waitress came over, an older woman with kind eyes. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said, pouring my coffee. I forced a smile. "I just came from a cabin in the woods," I said, unsure how much to share. It was a bit eerie. Her expression changed. "Ah, that old place. People say it's got a history," she said, glancing around as if someone else might be listening. "You didn't hear anything strange, did you?" I felt a chill slide down my spine. "What do you mean?" "The tapping, the whispers. It's been happening for years," she said, her voice low. "Folks say the cabin is haunted. Something about a tragic event long ago." "Like what?" I asked, curiosity eclipsing my fear. She hesitated, looking back at the other customers. "There was a family that stayed there years back. Something happened. They went missing. No one could ever find out what happened to them." The room grew quiet, and I could hear the soft humming of the fridge. My heart raced. What does that have to do with the tapping? She leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. Some believe their spirits are still there, trying to communicate. I took a sip of coffee, but it tasted bitter and cold. My mind raced back to the scratching on the walls, the haunting whispers in the woods. "It's just a story, right?" I said, hoping to convince myself. "Maybe," she replied, "but stories often have a way of revealing truths." Then she walked away, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I finished my pie and paid the bill, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Stepping outside, the sun was shining, but shadows seemed to stretch further than they should have. As I headed back to my car, I heard it again, a tapping. It was faint but clear, echoing through the parking lot. I turned, scanning the nearby woods, feeling the hairs on my neck standing up. Was it in my head? I quickened my pace to the car, my heart pounding. I had to leave. Just as I reached the door, I glanced back at the diner. The waitress stood at the window watching me, a concerned look mixed with something else, something I couldn't quite place. When I got in and closed the door, everything felt ominous. I turned the key in the ignition, but a sudden flash of movement caught my eye in the rearview mirror. I caught my breath and turned around slowly. That's when I saw it. A face staring back at me from the back seat. My heart raced as I stared at the face. It was pale, eyes wide with a mix of fear and something darker. I couldn't tell if it was male or female. The features were too blurred in the dim light. I yanked the car door open, adrenaline firing through my veins, and bolted out, slamming the door behind me. "What the hell?" I gasped, glancing around the empty parking lot, seeking help that wasn't there. I took a breath and peeked back through the window. Nothing, just an empty back seat now. I stepped back, unsure of what to do next. The waitress's words echoed in my mind, about the missing family, about spirits trying to communicate. Was this some twisted joke? My nerves screamed at me to leave, yet an unshakable curiosity held me rooted to the spot. I took a tentative step back toward my car. There had to be an explanation. Maybe it was a trick of the light, or a shadow from the trees, but deep down I felt a gnawing dread that told me it was something more. I got back in the car and locked the doors. I was breathing hard, scanning the surroundings, half expecting someone to leap from the bushes. The thought of driving away almost comforted me, but I needed to know if I was losing my mind or if there really was someone or something in that cabin. I pulled out my phone, considering calling the police for guidance, but instead I found myself searching for the cabin's address. A wave of dread washed over me again. Should I go back? The thought was as enticing as it was terrifying. I hesitated, but realized I might not have peace until I understood what happened. I took a deep breath and started the engine. The sound echoed in the quiet, almost mocking me, as I backed out of the parking space. Driving back felt odd. The road seemed longer, the shadows growing thicker with each passing mile. The diner faded in my rearview mirror, and soon I was back on the dirt road leading to the cabin. The atmosphere felt different. Tension hung in the air, thick as fog. When I finally parked at the cabin, I sat in silence for a moment. The wind rustled through the trees, and I could hear the whispers again, faint yet persistent, as if calling me inside. With hesitation, I grabbed a flashlight from the glove compartment and stepped out. Each crunch of gravel beneath my feet echoed loudly, surfacing every ounce of fear lurking in my chest. I approached the cabin door, adrenaline coursing through me, ready for whatever lay ahead. Just as I reached the handle, the tapping started again. This time it was louder and more urgent, as if something or someone was desperate to get out. I froze. Should I go in or run back to my car? Then I noticed a flicker of light through the window. It wasn't the moon. It was a soft glow, pulsating gently. Against every warning bell in my head, I stepped closer, flashlight raised. My heart thudded in my chest as I pushed the door open, the wood creaking like a warning, and that's when everything went dark. I opened my eyes, but I wasn't in the cabin anymore. I was lying on the ground, cold and damp with leaves sticking to my skin. My flashlight lay a few feet away, flickering weakly. Confused, I scrambled to my feet, brushing dirt off my clothes. Shadows crawled around me, and my heart raced again. Where was I? I turned around, trying to trace my steps. Behind me was the cabin, dark, ominous, and swaying with an unearthly rhythm like a heartbeat. But ahead, there was a thick woodland that seemed to stretch on forever, too silent and too still. I could feel the tension in the air press against my chest. "Hello?" I called out, my voice breaking the silence. The only answer was the whisper of the wind, teasing me with echoes of laughter that felt strangely close yet distant. A chill settled in me, gnawing at my resolve. I picked up my flashlight and pointed it toward the cabin. My hands trembled as I inched closer. It was as if the darkness was alive, wrapping around me like a shroud. I reached for the door again, the metal handle cold to my touch. This time it swung open easily, revealing a dimly lit room filled with dusty furniture and cobwebs. Inside, the air smelled stale, as if the cabin hadn't been touched in years. The light flickered again overhead, revealing glimpses of faded family photographs on the walls. I stepped further in, examining the images. They were of a family, smiling, happy, and completely unaware of the mystery surrounding them. The last photo caught my eye. The caption read, "The Last Family Reunion." My breath hitched. This had to be them. My mind raced back to the waitress's story. Had I stumbled upon something that should have remained hidden? I felt the urge to leave, but something inside me wanted answers. Then I heard it, soft, barely audible, a faint whisper. "Help us." It was indistinct at first, but it swiftly grew more desperate. Panic tinged my thoughts. The air felt electric, crackling around me. I turned, ready to bolt, but something caught my gaze. On the far side of the room was a small door, half open, just wide enough to let a sliver of moonlight spill out. Could there be something, or someone, behind it? The whispers wrapped around me like tendrils of cold, urging me on. My curiosity overpowered my fear, and I walked toward the door. It creaked loudly as I pushed it open, revealing a narrow staircase that descended into darkness. The whispers intensified, swirling through the air. That's when I saw it. There, at the bottom of the stairs, stood a figure cloaked in shadow, a face barely visible yet eerily familiar. My heart stopped. I had seen those eyes before. They were the same eyes I had seen in the car. Suddenly the whispers turned into a chorus. "Join us!" They seemed to echo off the walls, beckoning me closer. I took a step back, heart pounding so hard it felt like my chest would burst. Had I truly found the missing family? Or was this all a trap? Either way, I was running out of time to decide. I stood frozen for a moment, the whispers enveloping me. The figure at the bottom of the stairs seemed to shift, its form pulsating as if urging me to come closer. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to escape whatever lay ahead, but the familiarity of those eyes tugged at me. I took a shaky breath and stepped down a single stair. My flashlight flickered again, plunging the room into brief darkness before revealing the figure more clearly. It was a woman, her hair cascading around her shoulders like wisps of fog. Her expression was a mix of sadness and pleading. "Please," she whispered, "don't leave us." I felt a lump in my throat. The image of the family from the photographs rushed back. This woman had to be one of them. "What happened to you?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. "We can't leave, not until it's done," she replied, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. The shadows danced around her as if echoing her despair. My chest tightened. It was one thing to hear a ghostly tale, another to stand face to face with it. I was torn between the urge to understand and the instinct to flee. There had to be a reason why she was trapped here. Something brushed against my leg, pulling me out of my thoughts. I darted my gaze to the side, heart racing again. It was a small, dark shape, skittering away into the shadowy corners of the basement. My flashlight followed, but the darkness swallowed it up. "What was that?" I asked, anxiety creeping again into my voice. "Don't chase it," she warned, her tone sharp. "It's not what you think." "What do you mean?" Panic flared within me. My thoughts turned to the stories I had heard, the lore surrounding this place. Was it more than just a simple ghost story? "I can show you," she said, stepping towards me, the shadows shivering like leaves in the wind. "But you must promise to listen." 1,000 questions churned in my mind. I hesitated. What if this was a trap? But the thought of leaving without answers was equally unbearable. "Okay," I replied, barely able to keep my voice steady. "Show me." She nodded slightly and turned, moving deeper into the darkness. I followed, trying to suppress my fear. The air felt colder as we walked into the shadowy recesses of the basement. Each step echoed unnervingly, amplifying the whispers that were now a constant murmur in my ears. Then as we rounded a corner, the room opened up and I gasped. The walls were adorned with more photographs, but these were different. They showed moments of terror, families looking over their shoulders, fear in their eyes. Some were distorted, as if something had tried to cloud their presence. "What is this?" I asked, my voice trembling. "An echo of those before you." They didn't listen. The realization crashed down on me. Whatever was happening here was part of a pattern, a cycle that had ensnared family after family. My urgency to leave twisted into desperation. That's when the whispers shifted again, rising to a crescendo. "You cannot escape. You must join us." A coldness swept over the room that froze me in place. My pulse quickened. I was not alone. Something else lurked in the shadows, watching. The woman turned to me, her expression suddenly urgent. "Run!" Before I could react, the darkness surged forward, darkness swallowing the room whole. I stumbled backward as shadows surged forward, their forms swirling like a dark tide. The woman's desperate plea echoed in my mind, urging me to flee. My instincts kicked in. I turned and bolted back the way we had come. The hallway behind me seemed to stretch, the darkness stretching to latch onto me. My flashlight flickered, struggling to keep up. I couldn't let it go out. I needed the light, the only barrier between me and whatever was hunting in the dark. As I sprinted, the whispers transformed into a cacophony, each voice rising to a chilling chorus. "Stay with us!" they beckoned, chilling me to the bone. Suddenly, I felt something brush past my shoulder, cool as ice. I gasped, almost losing my footing. I dared a glance, but nothing was there. Panic surged within me, forcing my legs to move faster. I reached the staircase, where the glow from the open door above flickered like a lifeline. I jumped up the first step and heard a soft laugh, a strange sound, echoing off the basement walls. "You can't leave!" it taunted, echoing around me in every shadow. "Join us!" I shoved the door open, spilling into the light of the kitchen. There were no sounds of pursuit, only the eerie stillness of the cabin. I slammed the door behind me and leaned against it, trying to catch my breath. I had made it back, but at what cost? That woman, the whispers. What did they want from me? Struggling to find clarity, I scanned the room. Sunlight streamed through the windows, banishing shadows, but not my unease. I needed to find answers. I had to understand. The woman's face haunted me. Her sadness felt like a weight in my chest, and I couldn't ignore that. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. I thought of the photographs, the family trapped in their own terror. I had overlooked the items scattered about the cabin earlier, but they might hold clues. I moved quickly, rifling through drawers and cabinets. Each creak of the floorboards beneath me sent shivers up my spine. Finally, I found an old trunk in the corner of the living room. It was heavy, worn down by time. I knelt as I tugged it open, and dust wafted up like a long-buried secret. Inside were more photographs, but unlike before, these were unblemished. They showed the family laughing, celebrating, happy moments. I flipped through them, but my heart sank when I saw the last picture. It was a family portrait, all smiles, but then I caught something in the background, a dark shape looming just behind them. My skin crawled. I squinted, trying to make sense of it, but it felt like the figure was staring back at me, judging me. "No," I whispered, backing away. "What does this mean?" Then from behind me I heard it, the scuttling sound again, now louder. The memory of the small shadow in the basement flashed in my mind. I spun around, but the living room was empty. A sense of dread washed over me. What had I just uncovered? That darkness was still out there, lurking, and whatever had claimed the family was still hungry. Panic twisted my gut as the whispers returned, soft yet insistent. "You shouldn't have opened the trunk." And before I could react, the air grew heavy again. I realized I wasn't just being hunted. I was now part of the story. I had to decide, stay and confront this evil, or abandon everything, including the truth. That's when I heard it again, the soft voice, almost too sweet to be real. "You need to come back, we're waiting." I stood frozen in the kitchen, heart racing, as the chilling words echoed around me. "We're waiting." The voice seemed to seep into the walls, whispering through the very air I breathed. I wanted to dismiss it, to deny its existence, but something deep within urged me to listen. The woman's sadness replayed in my mind. I had to find out what had happened here. I shook off the panic and forced myself to focus. I had seen too much, and ignoring it would only make things worse. I took a deep breath and picked up my phone again. I scrolled through the photos I had taken, trying to find any flicker of information that might help. One photo caught my eye. It was taken in the forest behind the cabin, the trees looming like silent sentinels. I had noticed a strange formation of rocks the day before, something that felt out of place. I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to see it again. I stepped outside, the sunlight now a harsh glare against the backdrop of my anxiety. The whispers faded to soft murmurs the further I moved from the cabin. I started toward the edge of the forest, where the trees thickened and shadows pooled. Each crackle of leaves beneath my feet echoed like a heartbeat in the silence. As I pushed deeper into the woods, the air turned colder. I brushed past branches, feeling watched, even though I couldn't see anyone. The stillness was suffocating. I reached the rocky outcrop, a cluster of stones arranged in a way that seemed purposeful. This was it. The odd shapes were more than just geological formations. I knelt down, brushing away leaves and dirt. My fingers grazed something cold and hard. I dug it out cautiously, a small pendant, unnaturally cold to the touch. It depicted a figure twisted in despair, a familiar face that mirrored the woman from the cabin. I clutched it tightly, unease crawling over me like 1,000 ants. Suddenly, a noise pierced the silence, a rustle followed by a faint whisper. "You found it! Now you have to choose." My blood ran cold. I turned, expecting to see someone or something, but there was nothing but shadows between the trees. "What do you want?" I shouted, my voice trembling. "Why me?" The answer came not from an outside source, but through my very mind. "Join us," it echoed. "You cannot escape your fate." I stumbled back, dropping the pendant. My heart raced as I ran back toward the cabin, the path now feeling infinitely more sinister. Was it the shadows calling to me, or the family I had seen in the portraits? I needed answers, but I could feel a pull toward that pendant, a connection I couldn't ignore. By the time I reached the cabin, I was breathless and terrified. I rushed inside, slamming the front door shut and leaning against it, but I was haunted by the words I'd heard. I picked up my phone again, desperate to find something that could help. This time, as I scrolled through my photos, a new one caught my eye. It was taken in the basement, the faint image of someone, standing in the shadows. I hadn't even noticed it before. That's when I felt it. The temperature dropped, the air grew thick, and whispers enveloped me. "You need to come back," they urged. "You will be one of us." Before I could react, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned slowly, dread coiling in my stomach. Someone, or something, was in the house. I stared wide-eyed at the darkened hallway, my breath caught in my throat. The footsteps were closer now, slow and deliberate. I wanted to call out, to demand to know who was there, but the words wouldn't form. Instead, I pressed myself against the door, the wooden frame digging into my back, trying to blend into the wall. "Show yourself," I finally managed to croak out, my voice barely louder than a whisper. Silence hung over me like a thick blanket, smothering any courage I had left. Then, out of the shadows, a figure stepped into view. It was the woman from the portraits, the one who had tugged at my heartstrings, her expression a mask of longing and sadness. But something was off about her. The light danced around her, and her features flickered like a poorly tuned television, tangible one second and ghostly the next. "Why did you come here?" Her voice echoed through the room, blending with the whispering echoes that still assailed my ears. "You were not meant to be part of this." I don't understand. What do you want from me?" My heart pounded in my chest, each beat fueled by fear and confusion. I didn't mean to intrude. "You found the pendant." She reached toward me, her hand outstretched. It looked real, but the chill emanating from her made me hesitate. "You hold the key to what binds us here. With it, you can choose." "Choose what?" I said, my voice rising in desperation. Was I supposed to decide between freedom and something darker? Life or death, here or with us? Her gaze was intense, and for a moment I saw a flicker of hope behind her sorrow. "Do you wish to escape this place or become part of our story?" Before I could respond, the lights flickered and then went out. The world around me plunged into darkness. Panic surged through me, and I fumbled for my phone, using the dim screen to illuminate the room. The shadows felt alive, creeping closer and whispering in a language I could almost understand. And then I saw it, the faint outline of the pendant glinting on the floor where I had dropped it. It radiated a pull that I couldn't resist. As I reached for it, the whispers grew louder, drowning out every rational thought. "Choose!" the voices cried. I snatched the pendant and held it tightly, my fingers wrapping around its cold surface. The woman's form was still there, a mix of dread and longing etched on her spectral face. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me. "I choose." But before I could finish, the house shook violently. The walls shuddered, and I was thrown off balance, crashing into a nearby table. The whispers morphed into screams, drowning out my own panic. The lights flicked back on, revealing the room in chaos. Furniture had toppled, and the air was thick with tension. The woman was gone, leaving behind only her echo. I staggered to my feet, heart racing, ready to confront whatever fury this house unleashed. And then I saw the basement door creak open slowly, an invitation tinged with menace. Every instinct screamed at me to run, yet I felt a magnetic pull urging me forward. I took a cautious step toward the darkness, knowing that whatever awaited below would forever change my fate. I had a choice, but it felt like the decision had already been made for me. I stepped cautiously toward the basement door, my heart racing. The air was thick, and an unsettling chill crawled down my spine. It was as if the house itself was breathing, eager for me to descend into its depths. Shadows flickered along the walls, hinting at secrets better left undisturbed. Taking a deep breath, I gripped the pendant tighter. The cold metal pressed into my palm, a reminder of the strange woman and the choice she had laid before me. I could feel the weight of the past wrapped around me, tugging me toward the staircase. I knew I shouldn't go down there, but curiosity and fear created a powerful cocktail that propelled me forward. As I stepped onto the first stair, it creaked beneath my weight, echoing through the stillness of the house. I hesitated. What if I found something down there that I couldn't understand? What if it was a trap? But the whispers, still faint, called to me, promising answers. I descended slowly, each step plunging me deeper into darkness. The soft glow from my phone illuminated the rough stone walls, revealing old cracks and signs of moisture. I could smell something musty, like damp earth and decay. My breath came in shallow gasps as I reached the bottom. The basement stretched out before me. To my right, the walls were lined with shelves. Dusty jars filled with unknown contents seemed to watch me, their labels faded beyond recognition. To my left, a large wooden table stood in the middle of the room, covered in what looked like yellowed parchment. Wisps of unease curled around me, but I approached the table, drawn like a moth to a flame. That's when I saw it, a leather-bound book, its spine cracked and worn. It lay open as if waiting for someone to continue what had been left undone. I glanced around, half expecting the woman from the portraits to appear again. But the basement was silent, save for the sound of my own breathing. I leaned closer to the book. Scribbled notes covered the pages in hurried scrawl. Names, dates, and strange symbols that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. I traced one with my finger, and an electric jolt shot through me, like static clinging to my skin. Suddenly, a noise echoed from the darkness behind me, a clatter of something heavy falling. I spun around, my heart racing, but saw nothing. The whispers returned, louder now, almost frantic. "Choose!" they urged. "Know the truth!" But as I turned back to the book, I noticed something unsettling. It was no longer just a collection of names. It had shifted. More pages were magically turning, filled with illustrations I hadn't seen before. Some were twisted depictions of people in agony, others were families huddled together in sorrow. A sense of dread washed over me. I backed away, but the whispers intensified, intertwining with the darkness closing in around me. What had I uncovered? I felt the pull of the pendant again, stronger this time, like it was alive and urging me to make a choice. Then the basement door slammed shut above me, plunging me into complete darkness. My body froze. I was trapped. I turned frantically, searching for a way out, but the walls seemed to close in around me. I could feel the whispers growing ever louder, and I realized, whatever choice I was meant to make, time was running out. Gritting my teeth, I focused on the book again. "I choose to know," I whispered into the void. I would confront whatever awaited me. And then the ground beneath me trembled violently. As the ground shook, I staggered back toward the table, fumbling for support. The candles that sputtered in the far corners flickered wildly, casting frantic shadows that danced with a life of their own. I could barely hear the whispers over the pounding of my heart, but they persisted, pulling me toward an overwhelming truth buried beneath layers of fear and history. "Join us!" floated through the air again. It was like being caught in a storm of voices echoing off the walls of my mind. I clutched the pendant as the whispers intensified, resonating with something deep within me. The book quivered, pages flipping rapidly until they stopped on a drawing that made my breath hitch. It depicted a family, the very same one I saw in the photographs. But surrounding them were dark shapes, their eyes glinting with malice, fanged mouths open in eternal screams. I realized the common thread was pain, the bond of shared horror forced upon them. "Help us!" The voice transformed into a chorus of despair, threading itself into my soul. I understood now. The spirits weren't just seeking rage or vengeance. They were trapped, lost, and desperate for recognition. The ground convulsed again, and I felt a tremor in the air, vibrating through the entire cabin. It was almost as if the house itself grew restless, yearning for release. I didn't have the luxury of contemplating the reality of ghosts anymore. I was part of it now. Fear gripped my heart, but the clawing desire to free the souls entwined me in a web of responsibility. I glanced to the back of the room where the darkness curled, threatening to close in on me. "I choose to help you!" I shouted into the void, the echo of my declaration reverberating around the cramped space. The words felt powerful, almost like a spell, and as I uttered them, the air shifted. It crackled with energy, thrumming through the very fibers of the shadows. Suddenly the shadows coalesced and rushed toward me, binding me in a smoky embrace. I realized they weren't here to harm me. They were drawn to my intentions. I held my breath as visions flooded my mind. Fragments of lives shattered in pain. A family laughing and then vanishing from existence. The weight of decisions left suspended in time. Then I heard her voice again. The woman from the portraits. "You can break the cycle. You hold the key." In that moment I understood what had to be done. I needed to confront the darkness that ensnared them and let them spill their truth into the light. With newfound resolve, I opened the book to the page of the family portrait. I lifted the pendant and whispered, "Let their story be known." The pendant heated rapidly in my palm until it burned, and I thrust it against the paper. The moment it made contact, the room exploded into a riot of color. The book emitted a blinding light, illuminating every corner of the basement, dispelling the shadows. The spirits surged forth, swirling around me, their whispers merging into one urgent cry. "Thank you," I gasped, as the weight of countless memories flooded my consciousness. In flashes, I witnessed the family's last days. Fear, betrayal, a hidden treasure that sought vengeance in their absence. They hadn't vanished. They had been torn from their lives, trapped in a tale distorted by time. Then, just as suddenly as it began, silence fell. The light dimmed, and I was left standing in the wreckage of the basement, panting and trembling. Everything around me felt eerily calm, yet I knew the weight of what had just taken place. The basement door creaked open again, this time inviting and warm. Stepping through the threshold felt both freeing and sacrificial. I remained uncertain, wondering if the cycle had truly been broken. As I climbed the stairs, sunlight washed over me, revealing the cabin distorted yet somehow clearer. I was not alone. The family emerged, still shadowy figures, but their eyes held gratitude, a soft glow radiating from their presence. Whether I had released their anguish or simply brought them acknowledgement, I could not say. I stumbled outside, catching my breath, heart racing from adrenaline and disbelief. I looked back at the cabin. The whispers were gone, but the heaviness still lingered. Had I saved them, or had I merely united my fate with theirs? I took a step forward, the road ahead glimmering with uncertainty. As I drove away, I cast a final glance into the rearview mirror. The cabin stood still, but I could have sworn I saw shadows flitting across the windows, proof that what once was would always hold its place in time. And deep inside, I felt the whispers of the woods fade, leaving behind a haunting memory that would forever linger. I moved to a new town soon after, yet sometimes, in quiet moments, I feel a twinge of that tapping noise, resonating like an echo in the corridors of my mind. I wonder about the truths hidden in the shadows, and whether I'll ever know where the line between reality and the supernatural truly rests.